Hi, welcome to week 4 of City Vision University's social entrepreneurship course. This course is going to focus on getting customer feedback through interviews to assess product market fit. So we've been talking a lot about the business model canvas, and really what we're trying to focus on for this week is we're going to be going through and assessing do we have the right customer segments? Are the ways we're communicating value propositions, are those right? How do we refine those to better communicate? You might go to someone and say, here's this product, these 3 features are the great things about it. And then you casually mention a 4th feature and the customer lights up whenever they talk to that. You mention that, and all of a sudden that's, some good input. Revenue streams. You may think that you're going to be able to get individuals to donate to this, and that's not viable. It might need to be grants, or customers may not buy something. So the real focus is for that this week. So to talk a little more about some examples of that for City Vision. So over time, City Vision has gone through and we've refined our segments, and a lot of these different factors are important in how we work with students. So there's demographics, there's by level of the organization, there's the different degrees that they go for. But most significantly is we have students, we have partners, and then we have donors. And in that, we have different value propositions. And as we've talked to people and we've put things on our website, our website, this is what we're trying to communicate. And then we have specific segments that we might emphasize specific points. And then with our business partners, some of them value different components of this. There's a little more variety there. And then revenue streams, one of the big things that shifted over time is about 40% of our revenue came through partners, and now it's more than 60% and likely to grow to 75% over time. So what we've done with that over time is we've realized there's these 3 major segments, and that's informed our approach to marketing. So we have our main menu that students see is cityvision.edu, but we realized that there's a problem because we needed things that speak to the value propositions that our donors care about. So there we have a website called impact.cityvision.edu, and that's our annual report, our grants and donate page. And then for partners, we have the organizational menu on cityvision.edu, and that we're doing a lot of lean startup experiments on that and further refining that. So that's just one example. Now another example is with rescue missions. And you can use this kind of as an example. They may, realize the most significant segments. And part of this isn't just what's the data that you have, because you could list, 100 bits of data about your donors and your clients. It's what's the most significant ones for you to think about. And in this example, I actually did an iteration from the last time I presented this and said, okay, all donors have these, value propositions, but major donors are going to be looking for something particular, like a personal relationship with leadership, maybe a major donor officer and a connection with ministry, that if you don't do that, you're not going to be, effectively serving. And, there might be other things that they want that I didn't list here. As you talk with them, they may want you to be much more savvy about, what are the tax breaks and how do the tax breaks work for their donations. And some of those can get complicated in terms of trust. And then, you might start to iterate and think about, okay, how do you want to break out your donors that's most significant? So part of the purpose of this is not just to be a summary of things that you might iterate on. It's what's the most important components of this. So all that's more background to explain. That's the purpose of this week. But the real activity this week is interviews to assess product market fit. So the questions that you're asking, and you're going to be going through this lean startup loop to ask these questions. So the goal is that you're going to summarize your minimum viable product, and then you're going to try to get some data through these interviews, and then you're going to have potential pivots. So what are your goals? You want to assess, do you have the right customer segments? Are there important segments you haven't considered? Which ones are most important? Then the value proposition. Does your guess at the value proposition match what they really value? What's most important? Are you communicating it in a way they understand? And then are the revenue streams likely to be there to sustain your initiative? In the nonprofit sector, there's been a lot of programs I've had to kill just because, not because they weren't making impact, but because we work on the cutting edge in a lot of stuff we do. And if it's not self-sustaining, the donors get interested in the hottest thing. But then 5 years later, it's not the hottest thing, so they don't fund it anymore. So, are the revenue streams. So in your worksheet this week, all of it culminates in providing what you're learning through this process. So you're going to say, to the clients or to the customers, you're going to say, here's what I'm thinking about offering. And try to get some feedback on, does this make sense? And, you collect information from those interviews, and then you try to assess, what are the pivots based on that. So the key challenge this week is, who are you going to talk to? And I realized the biggest challenge this week, okay, if you had 6 months, you could line up, a lot more interviews. So at the end of the day, you need to try to find people to talk to. But you're trying to find people who can give you the best data on your product market fit hypothesis and assumptions. So some of these might be internal stakeholders. So if you're lower level in your organization and your executive director or development director needs to sign off, or program director, it could be helpful to talk to them to have important input. But then there might be other external stakeholders. And I want you to be sure to have at least some external stakeholders. So that could be clients or customers if you have access, and then donors. It may be hard to talk to a donor in the short term, so you can use friends who donate to similar causes if you have access to them. You can talk to your development staff and executive director to get their input. And one tool we're going to have you do, and I'm not going to go into all of this because it's going to be explained in the worksheet, but we're going to have you do a stakeholder map, and that will help you kind of brainstorm to think about, okay, who else might there be that I could interview? And you'll create a copy of this map. And part of it is, there's going to be stakeholders that are closer to the clients, stakeholders that are closer to resources. And so we have a stakeholder map for City Vision, and, we have those that are clients, and then we have different internal people. We have our faculty, our board, our donors, and then we have the accreditors, our Department of Education at the state and national level, employers and jobs, and then we have leaders of organizations sending students. So, you can create a stakeholder map like this, and this is mainly a tool to help you think about who else you might, try to interview for something like this. So hopefully you find this helpful, and the next thing that we're going to be covering is the worksheet for this week that you're going to use to earn in your homework.